So, Commissioner, if you would, for folks who have not been following the situation in Holly Springs, explain what's going on, how the PSC got involved, and where things are as we talk today.
Sure. We got involved. I was still in the legislature when it came to the light for most of us. They had an event up there to where a lot of people were out of power, and it just accentuated or shone light on the fact that HSUD had a hard time serving their customers. So at the end of the session before last, we were trying to fix something at the last minute. Didn't happen. So I was still in the legislature. So the speaker allowed me to go in the district and try to discern what was going on, root causes of the problem, and then possible solutions. So we had a series of hearings over the summer, not this past summer, but the summer before, to try to discern what was going on. And so we gleaned a lot of knowledge there, talking to constituents and those that were impacted, the utility district employees, TVA, and others that are involved to try to say, okay, this is kind of a ticking time bomb that we need to address because they're having some very serious issues with vegetation, power supply, and just overall operations of the system. So we crafted a bill, working with the legislature to try to give us the authority to go in because we didn't have any oversight previously. So the legislature passed some legislation to allow us to go in and contract an independent contractor to go in and study the system to give us better eyes and ears of what's going on with the system. So we contracted a company called Silver Point on August 5th, and so they're on the ground doing their work. So the next step is once we get that report back, we'll have we'll have hearings to where anybody can participate and come in, what they call intervene, to where everybody can tell their story, the cities, the people, they can intervene in this process to make sure that we know exactly what's going on. At the end of those hearings, the commission will discern whether Holly Springs Utility District is providing reasonably adequate service. So if we deem they're not providing reasonably adequate service, we turn it over to the court system, and the court system decides how to fix the problem.
Okay, I want to circle back on a couple of things.
Sure.
Number one, and if I want you to delve into this a little bit because I'm not sure everybody understands this.
Right.
The PSC's authority is limited, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, the PSC just can't go into a municipal system and do whatever, right?
That's correct. So we needed enabling legislation to allow us to kind of have a little more oversight. In the Northern District, most power companies buy wholesale power from TVA. So TVA has authority over a lot of the financial side, but not so much over the operations side. So it's kind of in that no man's land to where nobody's really overseeing it. Thankfully, most systems run really well. I'm very proud of our EPAs in North Mississippi and the Northern District. They do a great job, but there are some that struggle. And Holly Springs is one of 138 in the Tennessee Valley, and it's the only one that is having these kind of institutional problems of not only billing but supplying power, keeping it on. People lose power in the middle of the day on a bright sunshiny day. It's really, really bad. One gentleman reported he was out of power for 90 days and it wasn't storm related. The power just went out, a pole fell. We have one picture of a lift truck literally with the boom bucket holding a pole up, and they just deserted the truck there.
Why are they having these problems? I mean, from what you've gathered so far.
So far, over the hearings we had previous summer, the people there are working hard. So this is in no way an indictment of the linemen or the people working in the system. The problem is lack of leadership. They didn't have any leadership at the utility department for over a year. So the mayor was attempting to run it. And that would be like me or you trying to run it. It's really, really difficult if you don't have the expertise or the knowledge to do it. Back to the court system, the chancery judge would decide if and who would receive the certificate. So we'd certificate the area. So that's kind of the next step. Sorry to jump around, but that's kind of the next step. If we discern that it's reasonably inadequate, that chancery court judge would decide what happens to the system.
What could a judge do to resolve this issue if it got to that point?
Everything's on the table. So there's any number of issues. What we found out, and talking to, I have some real good friends that are in Holly Springs, so I speak with them a lot. And one of them literally thought that the utility district was kind of a revenue stream for the city. And I told him before we started, when we first started down this path, I said, what if we find out that it's not a revenue stream, but what if you're subsidizing the utility district, that the city is subsidizing the utility district? We didn't know at the time, but TVA went in and did a forensic audit of the financials, and that's exactly what they found, is that the wholesale price, the price that HSUD is paying to TVA, is greater than the money that they're receiving from the customers in that utility district. So the city's subsidizing the whole utility district. And so it would behoove them to try to figure out a way to possibly maybe even sell it off to those around them that have better resources to maintain the system and to upgrade the system that they need. Vegetation alone, we had a smaller survey done that was commissioned by the legislature 2 years ago, or be 2 years ago this fall. They went in and they looked at the system itself, and we can send you a link of their report, and it's very telling that they had transformers that hadn't been serviced. They didn't even have oil in some of them. That if they were activated, they would literally blow up. The whole system would be down for months at a time if that happened. There were maintenance sheds that had pretty good sized trees grown up in front of the door that were freshly cut, indicating that it's the first time anybody's been in any of those maintenance sheds for a while. Vegetation, vegetation on all the power lines, so that makes it dangerous for any other co-ops around them to come in and help because it's not safe. So you can imagine a pole with a bunch of vegetation on it. You can't send one of your linemen up that pole knowing that those all you don't know what's connecting those wires to what's connected to the pole. So one of your linemen could actually touch something that's hot and be very, very dangerous. So a lot of the EPAs around want to help them, but they can't because it's not safe. And we found out too that with the vegetation on those power lines, they have hot spots. So anytime vegetation is lying on the line, you drive around the district, it's all over it. It's parasitic. So it's a hot spot and they're losing power through it. So that's power that they're paying for that they're not getting compensated for just because of the maintenance. And it was testified to us that it was over $2 million just in right-of-way clearance. That's no repairs.
There's something I want to clarify. The news release that came out this week, if I read it correctly, said that the utility district is basically not cooperating with the PSC as far as the PSC wanting to, or I guess the company that's been hired. I don't know if it's them or it's the PSC directly. There's a cooperation issue going here. Can you delve a little bit into that?
Yes, sir. So what we did is, the legislature gave the authority to us to go in and to evaluate the system, so we can try to help the people in that area. And I can send you a link to where we did some constituent input, and it's heartbreaking. It's really heartbreaking to know what the people of that district are going through, and they've felt deserted. Like nobody cared about them, and I can understand why, because it's really third world. Generator sales up there are through the roof because they can't rely on the power. So we were just trying to get their employees to talk to us to tell us what is going on. What tools do you not have to make sure that this system's up and going? And the mayor blocked it. So they actually issued they quashed our request or summons for those employees to come testify on behalf of HSUD. And going back to the previous study that was done, they had an opportunity to respond to that study that was done a couple of years ago, a year and a half ago now, but they didn't even care enough to respond to it. So we've heard very, very little from the Holly Springs Utility District, and most of that is from leadership that the mayor is blocking it. The aldermen are doing a yeoman's job. The aldermen are trying to fix it now. It's been a back and forth with them for a while, but I'm proud of what the aldermen are doing, trying to they help get TVA in. We're trying to work with them to cooperate with our contracted labor. We don't have any direct oversight over Silver Point because they are independent. but we are encouraging through our subpoena efforts to say you need to come tell your story. But the fact that they're not telling their story indicates that they're trying to hide something or they don't know the answers.
And
And
is
that's
that what this hearing in January is basically trying to compel these utility workers to come to Jackson and testify?
some of it is. We're in the next phase now. So they've had their opportunity to have their input and tell us what's going on from their perspective. They've denied to do, they refuse to do that. So now all we have is what we know by going in the previous summer in this independent audit, and that coupled with TVA's forensic audit. So TVA did the financial side. Our subcontract team are doing the operations side. So those two will come together in the hearing to try to discern what's going on and how we get to resolution. So those people have some relief up there.
So the hearing in January is just, correct me if I'm wrong, it seems like it's more of, okay, this is where we are, where do we go from here?
It has more teeth than that. So what happens is that the hearing will actually dictate or basically get this thing off dead center. So the hearing that we have is not it's not a show hearing. It actually has teeth in the fact that the legislation passed allows us, if we just deem that they're not providing reasonably adequate service to the people in that district, a judge will resolve the issue.
So a decision will be made at that meeting.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes. So that's what we push for to try to help get to this point. I know a lot of talk has been done, and we speak to people every day in the district that are just, they've lost confidence in the system. But we're just telling them, hold on, we're coming. We're not forgetting you. We want to fix this problem, and our goal is to fix it for everybody there. Everybody there is suffering. It's not a regional issue. It's not a sectional issue. Everybody in that district. It even goes up into Tennessee. So it is a crisis.
By the way, how many customers in that district?
It's over 13,000 connections.
Okay, so yeah, that's a huge
It
huge
is.
chunk of folks.
And there's only three, Craig. There's only three in the state that kind of fit this footprint. That's a municipal that goes way outside of its city limits. That's Holly Springs, New Albany, and Okolona. They're all three in the Northern District. So they kind of had a land grant early on.
This hearing happens in January. The commissioners decide, hey, this thing needs to go to court. Basically, how soon could all of this be resolved to where, okay, we're power is supposed to be being provided like you expect it to be?
It depends on how the judge splits it up, right? So we don't know what he or she's going to do, but we hope that what they glean from what we've done and what comes out at the hearing is that it's a crisis. We have to fix it, and so I believe that that's going to be abundantly clear because of what we've seen. Once we share that with the public and with the judge, I think that resolution will come pretty quick. Now, we don't want to give the illusion that a system that's been kind of derelict for a decade or so is going to be fixed overnight. It's not, but our commitment and my commitment personally is to make sure that we see this through, and we're going to.
You've got a lot of electric power associations in that area anyway. Could one option be maybe some of them come in and take some of that and start providing service, or is that not an option?
There's any number of things that a judge could do. I mean, they could split it up. They could award certificated areas to different EPAs, like you have TIPA on the east side, you have North Central on the west side. You could award. There's any number of things they could do. The fastest track would be to have somebody that's financially stable, and I think that's the issue: is that HSUD is not financially stable. They don't have the money to maintain the system. So the question is, how do they get the money? How do they get the funds? If they're paying more for wholesale than they're getting retail, they don't have any money to fix all this millions and millions of dollars worth of repairs. So, but the
Go ahead.
system does have value, so they can sell it to neighboring EPAs as an option, and then retain the money in the city and do whatever they want to with it. Or a judge can say, order them to have some sort of receivership of some sort with a TVA or TVPPA. Those are just some of the few options that are out there.
Quickly, I'd like to touch a little bit on something that I heard you say in a recent legislative committee hearing about a nuclear power plant possibly coming to Tishomingo County, I'm guessing at the Yellow Creek site. Give us a snapshot as to what's going on with this.
We are very pro nuclear. With these power companies, especially data centers coming in, they want renewable clean energy. The most reliable clean energy we have in this country is nuclear. It's 95% on as compared to solar. It's 11 o'clock. About 25 or 26%. Wind is 38%-ish. Natural gas is up in the 80s, and then coal's in the 60s. So it's the most reliable, renewable energy that we have. So we are pushing to get more nuclear in the state to be able to stabilize our power and keep it reliable and affordable. So we filter everything through those two metrics: reliable, affordable. So with that said, we are actively seeking people to invest in Mississippi with nuclear. We already have Grand Gulf. They have a permit for a second site down on the coast. We're trying to get them to invest there so we can get more data centers, more opportunity. We did find out that, back to the Yellow Creek thing, it was originally designed as or earmarked to have a nuclear plant. Just couldn't get it off the ground because nuclear was out of vogue in the 80s, 90s. But obviously it's safe, it's reliable. Our aircraft carriers run on nuclear, our submarines run on nuclear, and it's a different game today than it was back in the 60s. But at the Yellow Creek, it's a fairly new technology that was again designed back in the 60s that didn't have the volatility, called FLIBE, FLIBE, and Kirk Sorensen is president of FLIBE Energy, so he's trying to get a FLIBE nuclear reactor at Yellow Creek. So I think he's had a contract on the site for 4 or 5 years, but it's a ways off. But we're in the infancy stage of that. So
is this a private company that would do this? Is this TVA? Is this? I mean, just trying to envision how this would work.
Sure, it's a private company, but any private company that locates inside the TVA footprint would more than likely have a power purchase agreement with TVA. And we're also chasing SMRs, small modular reactors. Those are 300 megawatts or less. They're a little less expensive to deploy. You can deploy them around the state where you removed a coal plant. You can just plug in an SMR, and all the infrastructure is already there. Plus, the Advance Act that the Congress just passed is allowing us to recycle some of the spent fuel. Some of the spent fuel of the previous nuclear reactors is just sitting on site, and you can recycle that. And there's enough recyclable nuclear fuel already on the ground to run the country for over 200 years, they're telling us.
So this is not a tomorrow thing by any stretch, but it's at least a start on making something happen at a site that you and a lot of folks know. There have been a lot of stops and starts at Yellow Creek.
Yes,
this would probably be something very welcome to folks in Tishomingo County.
We'd love to see it. And TVA, just to kind of giving you and your listeners an idea of where TVA's mind is, they've actually commissioned their first SMR, and again, that small modular reactor at Oak Ridge, to kind of test the concept. So once that is built and everything is a green light, what we're thinking and kind of getting indications from them is they'll start mass producing these around the valley, and that brings the cost of that technology down, and it'll continue to proliferate, and our energy future will be even more secure.
Some people, and look, we're old enough, we remember when nuclear power was not viewed very favorably. I mean, remember 3 Mile Island and Chernobyl, and how do you, as the Northern District Public Service Commissioner, how does TVA, how does the government in general ease any fears that people may have who have the memories of what happened back then?
Technology's come a long way in 60 years. So there are systems that are in place to make it even safer today. And just as a side note, you mentioned 3 Mile Island. They're actually recommissioning that. They're opening it back up. That's a partnership I think is with Google or Amazon that is partnering with the company to reopen 3 Mile Island. So there's a whole lot of excitement around nuclear. It is safe, and again, I pointed to our aircraft carriers. Literally have two nuclear reactors on those. Submarines have one nuclear reactor. They're extremely safe. It's clean, renewable, reliable power, and again, it's going to be the future because as much as we like the idea of wind and solar, it's just not as reliable as we need it to keep from having brownouts and intermittent power outages with it.